In SolidEdge ST5 assembly environment, we have new functionality called Insert Assembly Copy. Insert Assembly Copy is very similar to Insert Part Copy. And what occurs with an Insert Assembly Copy, or sometimes we refer to it as IAC, is that if I'm in for example, this blank assembly, I can run Insert Assembly Copy and go out and identify an assembly that I want to bring in to this top level assembly as a copy. And then of course anything that occurs in the master file will be reflected in this file through the link. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at how this works. Over here you'll notice a new option called Insert Assembly Copy, and when I run that particular option, of course the only option to pick is from assembly files. And so what we'll do is we'll go into the Insert Assembly Copy Demo 10 folder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grab the roller table. And so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and click on the Open dialog. And that's going to bring in the Insert Assembly Copy dialog. Now I want to talk about a couple of things here. Coordinate system. When you bring in an Insert Assembly Copy or a copy of an assembly, it basically is asking you what coordinate system do you want to place this on. In this case, I've got two coordinate systems. I have the base coordinate system on the left, and I have this CoordSys2 over here on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the CoordSys2 just to kind of show you how that works. There also are a couple of other options. Add new components on update, meaning when I bring this copy into this file, if I go back to the master part file and add any new components, do I want this copy to add them to this particular copy? And in this case we do. We'll leave that on. The same with include assembly features. If any assembly features are included in the master file, do we want those features to appear in our copy? And in this case we have it checked yes. Now, we'll talk about mirror in the next section, so we're not going to talk about mirror in this particular section. Now, one of the cool things about Insert Assembly Copy is if you want to reuse, for example, frames, pipes, tubes, anything of that nature, you can bring those in as copies, and of course anything that occurs in the master file will occur in this file. The other neat thing about this is, for example, I'm bringing in this cart assembly, and maybe I don't want the casters to come in with it. Maybe I'm going to build a new cart from this assembly, but I want to use different casters. Well, at this point I can exclude those caster files just by going to the pull down menu, and you'll see the swivel caster, and I'll just exclude those. Now once I've set those to exclude, everything else I'm going to bring in, and we'll just click on the OK button. And what it will do is it will copy in that assembly file. You see how quick it was. It copied in that assembly file, and you might recognize this assembly from ST4 update training. Copied that assembly file into the coordinate system that we selected, which was CoordSys2. Now, of course, at any time, if I make a change to this coordinate system, for example, its location, I can simply make a change to its location. Maybe I set, let's set the x to 0, and you'll notice that as soon as I change the location of that coordinate system, the copy automatically updates to that change. Once that's complete, another thing that you'll notice that is new in ST5 is the actual assembly copy collector. And you'll notice that the collector basically is that assembly copy with all of the components that make up that master assembly file that we brought in, excluding the casters that we chose not to bring in. Also, when you click on the assembly copy, if you ever want to make any types of changes, if you just click on that, maybe you want to change the coordinate system. Maybe you want to turn off, add new components on update, or include any new assembly features. Maybe you want to exclude some more part files. or include part files, you can do that here, but just by simply editing the insert assembly copy. The cool thing is, with this assembly copy, this is always looking back at the master part file. So with that, let's go ahead and open up the master part file. I'm going to click on Open, and I'm going to grab the roller table. I'm going to open up the actual roller table itself. And there's the roller table. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this up. So let's go ahead and highlight that. We'll move our steering wheel to the lower corner, and then I'm going to hold the control key down because I want to copy it, and we're going to move it up from that bottom and put it right on the top, kind of like the demo that we did. Now you'll notice that now the top level assembly has a blue plate. If I switch windows and go back to our assembly insert assembly copy, you'll notice that when that new plate was added, the assembly copy here also, updated and added the blue plate on the top. So any changes, the assembly copy is always going to reflect those changes. Now I'm going to switch back to the top level assembly, and this time I'm going to select that blue plate, and I'm going to use the replace part, and I'm going to accept that top blue plate, and this time I'm going to replace that blue plate with the blue base with a green base part, just to kind of show you the change there with a different part. Again, going back to our assembly copy, you'll notice that the copy, the IAC or insert assembly copy, is updating to those particular changes that we talked about. Another change that we might want to make back in the master part file is we might want to add an assembly feature. So in this case, I'm going to grab the cutout command, and I'm just going to create an assembly feature. And I'm going to pick this top plane and just put in a quick cutout. Don't really care about the size. Again, if I pass it through, it highlights the part that I want to create the cutout in, and you'll see that cutout. Then again, we can go back to the switch window, and you'll notice that our assembly feature or our assembly copy has not updated yet. By running the update all links, it's going to update and show that assembly feature. I'm then going to go back to the top level component, and I'm going to add a couple of new parts. I'm going to add a base post that doesn't have any holes in it, very similar to these posts. So when I drag these in, I'm going to go ahead and mate them and just align them. And again, not really too concerned about the position, so I will place one on the opposite side just to kind of get them into position. And then I'll make sure this one is in line with the first one. So now I've got two new plates. So I've added an assembly feature, I've replaced a part, and now I've added two new posts. And when we go back to our copy, we can simply update, and you'll see that our insert part copy has indeed updated as it should. Another thing that we have the capability of doing on the assembly copy is there is an option under the More pull-out menu to freeze. So if I, for example, click on freeze, what it's going to do is it's going to lock this assembly copy, which you'll see the link, lock the links, and so that any changes to the master part file will not be reflected in my copy. Now, of course, that's one way to do it. And then, of course, if you want them to update, you can always come back and unfreeze the assembly copy so that it will update to any changes that you've made. So let's go ahead and give that a try. I'm going to go ahead and freeze. You can see the lock. Switch. And then back in our top level assembly, I'm going to replace. And I'm going to pick all of those posts. And I'm going to replace them with the ones with no holes. And then I can switch back to our copy. And you're going to notice that nothing has updated, even when I run the update all links, because this has been frozen. So if I come back and I run the unfreeze, immediately you're going to see that it's going to re-look at the master when I unfreeze, and it's going to update to any changes that I've made. So from these different examples, you've seen how the assembly copy is always going to reflect what's in the master part file. Now, of course, at any time, if I save this copy, and then let's just say I want to create a brand new assembly file, maybe an isometric assembly, ISO assembly in this case, and then I want to go out and grab that IAC copy. Maybe I've made several copies and I want to bring them together. I can simply drag that IAC copy assembly where we where we made all those changes. This is not the master, this is the actual IAC copy of the master, and I'm bringing it into a new assembly where I can then mate and align it with other components. Now, of course, I can bring in multiple IACs together if I want to do that at any time. And when I open up the IAC assembly that I brought in, you'll notice that it is driven by the actual assembly copy that we created. Again, anything happens to the original get updated through the assembly copy and then, of course, reflected at the top level. Now, one other example that I want to show you as I close these files out is just the working with some frames. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another assembly, and it's called 2 IAC copy. It's in your folder, and you can see that I have just an assembly pattern. So what I'm going to do is bring in an assembly copy of the frame. And when I click on it, I'm just going to tell it to put it on the base coordinate system. I'm not going to exclude anything. And here I can bring in an IAC or an assembly copy of a framework that I brought in. The cool thing about that is if anything occurs in the master, more frames added, the frame types are changed or whatever, this is going to reflect. So this is a great way to duplicate, in this case, a framework. And then, of course, if I want to mirror this frame, we can easily do that. So, or not mirror, but pattern. So if I say, for example, I want to do an assembly pattern, and it says click on the parts. So I'm going to select all of these components. So I'm just going to pick them, and you notice it highlights all of them, and then I'm going to check that off, and then I'm going to select the pattern and accept it, and I can very quickly create a pattern of these assembly copies or of the original assembly copy. And then, of course, at any time, again, just to repeat myself several times, I know if the master updates, the copy is going to update, and then the pattern is going to update. So again, some really key, really neat functionality bringing in whether it's frames or just an assembly copy of something. This all works very well in the Solid Edge ST5 assembly environment.